Hi folks, I realized it's been a while since I've done a tutorial. This is going to be just a couple various random quick hints. Let me show you using selection sets to select things very easily. I'm going to load in this is the Protoss Zealot unit from StarCraft. I'm doing some StarCraft style animations later on, and I've already made a selection set. Control F1 to bring up the scene editor, and what a selection set does is give you an easy way to select items. So for example, I wanted to be able to select all the bones here in the tail that comes out of his head. So I've already created a selection set, and it's called tail, and when I select it, that selects those items for me. So no matter where I am in the scene, what else is selected, I can easily get to those. And as you can see, it expands the hierarchy here so that you can see see them selected in the viewport. So for example, if I want to create a new set, here's how I would do it. Unfortunately, you can't do it by selecting items in the viewport. If I try to save these here, go to save selection, it will say that the selection is saved, but when you go to select it later, it will not actually do it. So let's say I want to select everything in this hand here. Let's go and expand his entire hierarchy. Go to right click and go to expand child items recursive. So the entire hierarchy has been displayed, and let's see, I think that's the right hand. So I'm gonna save that as our hand. So now when I select, I can select the tail. Let me just prove to you that it is selecting it. And so as you can see, it's an easy way to select different items. You could select lights, you could select cameras, you could select null objects, and that's one way of doing it. Let me show you another caveat of this thing you should be aware of, is that if I load another copy of this scene in here, I'm going to go to load. Okay, I'm going to have to move this over. This is really giving me load items from scene, and we're going to load in his same scene again. So this will give me a copy of him. And I'm going to move him over. Now, you would think that since I loaded items from scene, it's basically loading the exact same hierarchy and all the plugins and various items, but it doesn't work with the selection sets. If I go back here, you'll see that I don't have another. When I select tail, it doesn't select his tail, even though that was part of the original scene. So when you go into these selection sets, you're going to have to do it manually. So if I want to create a set for his tail, I'll have to do that manually. I'll go in and I'll select these. Okay, so that'd be all right. So I've created a selection set for him. So now if I want this guy's tail, I just select his set. And if I want this guy's tail, I select his set. So there's a little bit of setup, but as you can see, it can be a massive time saver over a period of animating a bit. Okay. Next thing I'm going to show you is from the Star Wars fan film that I've been working on, because I'm working on fan films left and right here. One little thing here, as you can see, this is Darth Vader and General Grievous duking it out in a lightsaber duel, and yes, the plot does explain how that is possible. So anyway, as you can see, they're fighting. Now this object here is a collision detection object. We can worry about that later, but as you can see, they're fighting and stuff. And you'll notice that I put a lens flare here when the lightsabers clash to accentuate the clash of the lightsabers. And the way you can get that to, if that's not showing up in your viewport, hit D to bring up your preferences in your display. And then when you go to OpenGL down here on your camera, you can have it show the fog. You can have it show, for example, the safe areas for your video cutoff, and you can have it show the lens flares in here if your graphics card can't handle it. Okay. But what I want to actually show you about this scene is I found a tip if you're animating a sword fighting sequence, or really just about any kind of sequence, which is that you want to keep track of an arc that an item in motion is doing. And what I found out was the animators at ILM, when they were animating Yoda fighting with a lightsaber, they attached a null object to the end of his sword and track that to show where the arc of the sword was going. And so I've done that. I've selected a null object, called Vader sword tip. So if we go in here, it's kind of hard to see. Let me go ahead and hide, or just bounding box the throne room there so it's easier to make out. Now let's go to that. And as you can see, whenever you select an item in Lightwave, by default it will draw the motion path. So I can see the arc. For example, I can see right here the arc that the sword is going through when he goes to swing over his head like that. But the problem is that, let's say I want to keep this arc up here on screen no matter what. Now, if I select his arm, that arc goes away because the item is not selected anymore. But there's a plugin, a free plugin. We'll select the Vader sword tip again and hit P. And it's called Draw Motion Path. And when I turn it on, as you can see, it will draw the motion path even when I select something completely different. So if I select these items, it's still showing the motion path for that. And it also has some very useful other features. So if you double click on it, as you can see, you can change the color. You can have it show the motion path only over a certain range of frames. And you can have some useful information, like you can have it display the actual position in the world, and you can have it whether you want it to show keyframes or not. So you could find that from flay.com, I believe, and that really was very useful in orchestrating this sequence here. So I hope these little tips and tricks help you out, and I'll be bringing more of them to you later on.